A lot of people use AI because it's a cool thing to say, but all AI really is advanced software. It's all it is. It's software, it's technology. So software has always been advancing and it always has been doing things better. It's not going to fully replace really good salespeople, but I think it will replace the really bad salespeople, the ones who just been coasting or trying to do their minimums to be their maximums. 4,200 people apply to be an SDR on our sales floor every single year. We hire less than 2% of them a year. Now, that's harder to get into our doors than it is to go to Harvard.
What is the number one thing you attribute to your success and how you've got to where you are now as a CEO of this business? Okay, team, this week we are heading over to the States, over to the East Coast, New York specifically. We've got a wonderful fellow called Gabe Lullo, and he is the CEO of a very, very clever company, a sales development company called Alleyoop. He's going to give us some amazing insights about his career, what he's learned as CEO of this business. And they run a very clever business. They work with all the top firms like Adobe and ZoomInfo. They do about 11 million cold calls. Is it a month or every year, Gabe?
A year. That would be insane, but yeah, a year.
That would be insane. So there's a lot that this guy knows about this stuff. So Gabe, welcome to the show.
St. John, thank you so much for your time. We're big fans of you and the show, and we share your stuff all the time in-house here, so we love it. And thanks so much for asking me to hop on the show.
Awesome, my man. So Gabe, let's get into it. Tell me a little bit about what you guys do, but like very briefly, so people can get an idea of what you do and why you do it, and what you've learned along the way. I know that's a big question.
Yeah, I mean, everyone says, they hate prospect, they hate cold calling, or they obviously, should be or rather be selling and doing demos. But at the end of the day, prospecting is such an important part of the sales function. And so what we do is we do the hard things. We actually do that exclusively. So we have well over 100 sales reps on our sales floor that are able to be, utilized by our clients, and our clients bring us in and we run their outbound sales development motion. So we're fully white labeled. We're building all of the campaigns completely custom and bespoke to the client. Like you said, you mentioned some big companies. We have billion-dollar brands that come to us to launch new products, and we have startups that come to us to bring their first product ever to market. And so our focus is to have conversations with the right people, find out if they have a need, solution, or a problem, and find the right time and put them on the calendar for our clients.
This sounds like an amazing, and I say this with love and affection, a turnkey solution, an all-in-one in this virtual floor. So you've got all these amazing salespeople. For our rural listeners who are rural sales managers, they can be in Nebraska, Wisconsin, they can be in Australia, Canada, UK, New Zealand, wherever they happen to be listening, and we're very grateful for those that do. Let's talk about, I'm going to start with the concept of onboarding.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on onboarding, and what are some of the mistakes you see or the shortcuts businesses make? And I'm sure with your business, because it's a very good one, the onboarding process is very tightly defined and documented, and you don't leave anything to chance. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, a lot of companies come to us and say, we need to start making calls tomorrow. And it's usually they're coming to us because they've tried this in-house multiple times, it's failed, or they have no idea what they're doing, and they just need a quick fix. And I will actually say we're not the company for you. Onboarding to us is so vital to the long-term longevity of the client, right? So our onboarding is a month. We actually take a full month, and we're running in multiple parallels. We have a very big team, so we are able to do this in parallel and keep it to a month. But we have messaging being developed and customized. We have data and ICP lookups and research and CRM and tools that are being launched specifically for the client. And then we have the people part. We have to fine-tune and select the right people with the right background and train them all within a month. So we launch between when they sign a contract with us to the first cold call in about a 30-day period of time. But there's 47 different things that we have to check off a list, literally, to make sure that we're ready to go. And so onboarding is crucial and essential. And if you don't start off on the right foot, it's never going to be a long-term partner.
I love this 47-point checklist. I know this is such a poor metaphor, Gabe, so indulge me here. It's like when you take your car to the dealer, you want to make sure they do their, all their checklists. But the reason I asked about onboarding is something that And I love the fact you said, look, we take a month, and if you want us to just get on the phones and start banging out calls, we're not the business for you. It's like us. Our training, our programs aren't for everyone, and we're very, very overt and open and honest about that. And I love the respect you are saying, as a true professional, as you guys are. It's like when we onboard, we're onboarding properly. And all the things that you mentioned there, ICP, CRM, SOPs, all those king messaging, they're so, so crucial. But, there are still businesses that just throw the keys to the guy or say get out of here or hit the phone, smile and dial and all this kind of bullshit. And it's like, are we in the 1980s here, like with Boiler Room, sort of, Glengarry Ross, or like, are we going to actually be professional about it? It's crazy, isn't it, that people shortcut onboarding, and it's so important to set your people up for success, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's that spray and pray mentality that in the 80s and the 90s, that Wolf of Wall Street approach to just call everybody and sell them anything. Well, the reality is people are smart now, right? People know who's calling. People have caller IDs. People have Google. People have like AI, so they can know all about you before you get past 30 seconds in the phone call. And so we are not just booking the meetings, we are also making sure that meeting happens and making sure that deal turns into an opportunity and making sure that opportunity closes. So we're responsible for the entire sales journey, not just throwing mud against the wall and hopefully seeing it sticks. And so that's a huge responsibility, and we don't take that for granted. So yeah, like you said before, we have to make sure that onboarding is tight. Another thing that we're just as fanatical about is our term. There's a lot of month-to-month type companies out there, or companies that ask for way too much time to commit, 2 years, 3-year commitments. Our term is 6 months to start with us. Mm-hmm. And the reason why we picked 6 months is not because we thought it was a good number. It's because in prospecting and sales, it takes time to boil water. And it takes us 90 days to boil the water, but it takes us another 90 days to cook the pasta. And so 6 months to us gives us enough time to prove to you this is effective and working, gives you predictable benchmarks to know, and you can obviously benchmark off of. But it also gives the client a punchy amount of time that they're not overcommitting. So we'll get creative on pricing if we need to, or pull some things away if we need to financially for them. But we won't get creative when it comes to our term, because we need to double down for 6 months straight to prove to you that this is effective.
I love how you don't compromise on your values and you hold yourself to higher standards. I think that's very admirable. I think I really love what you've just said there. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is another stage I see that people don't get right is the recruitment. Yeah. So I don't know if you can be a generous fella, and most of our guests are, and I know you will be, Gabe, because remember, your name begins with G, and G is generous, right? So right. When you think about the specifics in recruitment, what are the specific things you're looking for? What are the things that are really stand out? Because guys have been doing this for a long time. What can we learn about how you do your recruitment? What are some of the things that you don't have to give to all your trade secrets, but like, what is it that stands out in exceptional salespeople? What are you looking for?
And by the way, I don't hold any punches. If you ever go to my LinkedIn profile, I share everything that we do. And if people are crazy enough to do what we do, I would applaud them to go out and compete with us. That's awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Recruitment is by far my number one pet peeve in the entire business. Cool. We have 3 pillars called people, process, technology, and we prioritize them in that order, right? So people is number one. We're in the people business. Sales is the people business. I know there's AI coming, but I also will tell you that it's not replacing salespeople. It's augmenting and enhancing them. But at the end of the day, we need to make sure we have best-in-class people. I'll give you some stats. 4,200 people apply to be an SDR on our sales floor every single year. We hire less than 2% of them a year. Now, that's harder to get into our doors than it is to go to Harvard, if you look at just a percentage standpoint from applicants. And I say that because we are fanatical about who comes in the door. We don't hire brand new sales reps to give them a shot. But what, to your point, is what we do look for, however, is grit, tenacity, and confidence over experience, talent, and technology skills. So I'd rather have someone with grit, tenacity, and confidence all day. We can mold them and train them into how to be effective. But at the end of the day, that's what we look for. And how do we do it? We put them in real life scenarios. We have them sit on our sales floor. We have them shadow people. We have them make calls. We have them do mock role plays. We have them do a live video of actually doing a mock phone call so we can see what they would look like, hear, and sound like on the phone. So they're interviewing us just as much as we're interviewing them. But it's not just a very, transactional interview. It's a real world scenario. And then we go from there.
I love it because I think I'm agreeing with you around recruitment. It's such a flawed process. It's such a superficial tick box hothouse effect, across the desk, come in. And you and I both know, because we've been doing this for a while, that salespeople are very persuasive. But you have to test them. You have to watch them playing the game live, not the edited highlights. Or, I think like all human beings, Gabe, they self-present very well, and they're very persuasive. They're very influential. That's what the good guys and girls get paid for, right? They're really good at what they do. But I really love how you test them, you role play them, you see them, you almost take them for a test drive, right? And you watch how they do it, not just what they say, like their walk and their talk. Is that right? Am I getting it right?
Yeah, I mean, you brought up a couple movies. I look at it like Saturday Night Live, right? Recording a sitcom or like a Seinfeld or a Friends or a recorded sitcom, that's like writing an email. You have many takes to get it right. Well, in Saturday Night Live, it's live, so that's stressful, and there comes a lot of excitement because of that. But a phone call is just like that. Like we're talking, you and I right now live. On a cold call, you have to be very, very good and on it, and we have them literally audition. They have to audition like you would get a part on a show or a movie. You have to do an audition to be a sales rep on our sales floor. And we just don't stop there in the hiring process. Another thing that we do is they actually sit on our brand for a minimum of 30 days, meaning they're actually calling for my company, our brand, our sellers. And that's really where we see where they're at, but also they get trained very well, and then they get assigned to a client. So we know that that they are capable to execute on behalf of our client. Yeah.
So basically your clients aren't paying to train your guys. You are basically getting them to train them on your business, a bit like ours. Yeah. First is any system we share is one we've cooked ourselves, and we've eaten our own supper, so to speak. Yeah. So I love this people focus first, and I love this concept of auditioning. And I think a lot more businesses and sales could do it, because the audition, like you say, with that beautiful metaphor of Saturday Night Live, which is bloody great, by the way. We just don't see enough of it down here. It's a great show. Is they get one take, because it's live. And, we won't go into the rabbit hole why improv comedians are so amazing and what salespeople can learn from improv, but there's a very strong correlation between that. So let's move on to process. Tell me more about the process, that second stage, because obviously the first focus is people, and the second part of recruitment is process. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so when we actually implement them into the onboarding process, we have a structured interview process, if you will. So we take them through a 4-step interview process. The first step is actually a recorded one-way video submission, which really completely screens out a lot of individuals. Many just don't even do it, but the many that do it, it gives us a clear understanding of, are they tech savvy? Are they confident? Are they able to come across well on a phone call? Do they actually have the experience and background that they're looking for? And so we ask them questions, and we use AI to help understand that part of it. And that's the first step in the interview process. And we absolutely love it. And our candidates love it as well. So that's the first step in that process. Then we take them to the next step, which is a one-on-one meeting with our sales director. And it's interesting because our sales director, there's a group of them. They rotate on the interview process. They are going to be their boss. So they are right there knowing who their people are. And we also use that as a great way to draft which new hires are going to be on the teams. So a sales director will be like, hey, this one's going to work really well with this manager. This one's going to really work well with that manager. So we're not only aligning them to see if they're a good fit, we're trying to find out who can be their mentor that also would be a great fit for them to be trained.
Yeah, I love that. I was just sort of going back to sort of David Goggins, can't hurt me, Navy SEAL coaches down at San Diego Beach yelling at them. You're obviously a little bit different, but I really like the rotation and the fit, and some will work better under certain squads or whatever words you want to call them, and some will work better. Tell me about the technology, because obviously, do you have your own platform, or do you use you can be agnostic about it, you don't have to, but what's the sort of technology? You're obviously using a CRM, you're using a workboard. How do you manage these 1,500 bloody reps and agents? I mean, that's a lot of people to manage across, and it's a virtual room, right? It's a virtual floor.
Yeah, so we definitely have a video sales floor. It's very similar to what you would see on a Zoom call, right?
Yeah.
Where everyone is able to see each other, interact with each other as if they're in an office, but they're on video from their homes. And the team loves it because they have that cultural feel that they're not alone by themselves making cold calls at home. They're a part of a team. So that's very good from a culture perspective. We do have tracking tools that's monitoring their workstation to make sure they're being highly effective, and if there's any issues or gaps there. We have a dialer that allows us to make a lot of phone calls without having to click or research or copy and paste, so it's actually making calls. We don't use auto dialers where it's sending a ton of calls, because that really lowers your connection rates. We want as many conversations as possible. But we do it in a way that does speed up the process, so we're doing it at scale at a faster rate than a normal click-to-dial type scenario. And we use Salesforce as our CRM to manage all of our campaigns. So we do have vendors in every scenario. We're not a software company. We're not trying to build our own. However, many of them have completely customized their solution to us, so it fits perfectly. So there's a lot of customizations for sure. So it's unique to us for sure.
Yeah. So share with the listeners some tips or tricks, because we've had a few guests talk about CRM. You've got a lot of knowledge. What are some of the best tips and tricks you see with CRM in terms of selling it into the team, the importance of it, adherence, data hygiene? What do you and your sales directors use to help people? Because CRM, it's your lifeblood, right? It's like breathing.
Yeah.
You've got to have it.
So we use this dial, and I'll plug this company. It's called FrontSpin, and FrontSpin is a dialing technology. It's essentially a sales engagement platform. Companies like SalesLoft or Outreach are companies that are similar. This one is more phone focused for large teams, and it sits on top of Salesforce.
Yeah.
So anything that is coming to the rep's desk, they have a full one pane of glass to see everything they need. Whether it's past calls, whether it's notes, whether it's contact information, whether it's LinkedIn profiles, and even the weather and the time zone that the prospect is in would be
important.
an opportunity.
Important.
Exactly. And now there's an AI component too that's actually giving battle cards, literally notes in real time, listening to the call of what they should be saying. Maybe they talk about pricing. Well, here's a bullet point of what you should say as a suggestion. They're not reading it. They're not, sounding like robots, but they're using it and
yelling at them.
Yeah, it's like a little ping saying, hey, maybe you should mention this, maybe you should mention that. And then they're not able to move to the next part of the process in that sales call without documenting everything. You literally can't move forward. So there's no way of ignoring or not filling things out, which means their data hygiene is best as possible. We all know CRMs are never pretty, but at the end of the day, this gives us an ability to know exactly what's happening on every scenario. And here's the best part is everything's being recorded and transcribed. So we can look back and share that information so the client is fully prepared to know what to do next in the process. And we're using AI to transcribe that.
So clever. I mean, you've done such a good job of articulating that in a very short period of time, because that sounds pretty clever stuff. And when you're dealing with your billion-dollar brands that you have the privilege of representing, that's very, very impressive. Now, we talked about people, we talked about process, talked about technology. Obviously, we can't have a conversation without talking about AI. And you mentioned something very important. You said that it would be an enhancer, not a replacer. And do you want to expand on that? Because I think there's a lot of people dreading AI. Some are welcoming it, but some are dreading it. I want to go deeper, because I know you and I are going to have a really good jam on this one. Is like the humaneness of sales, the empathy, the soft skills, the EQ. You've mentioned already, and I know you know where I'm going with this, the importance of the quality of the conversation and the connection and all those things, linguistic markers. We can talk about all those things all day long. But the question is, what do you think, what would your advice be to people that are worried about AI and they've just heard this is a dude that runs a pretty big business over in Eastern Time, Eastern Seaboard, pretty amazing creds. Wow, that technology is a million miles away where we're from with our basic CRM. What would you say to them around the sort of human side and the AI side and the over-reliance on technology? that they actually can't think for themselves. What's your response to that?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you just look on the other side of this camera, I have two 57-inch displays,
I
two
can see it.
iPads. I literally look like I'm in a
Mission
NASA
control. You're
mission
huge.
control.
Yeah.
So I am highly tech savvy individual. However, here's what I'll show you. The data is in the results. If we go out and we send out 1 million emails and we make 1 million phone calls, I will tell you phone calls will completely crush email all day, every day. Now, is it more expensive? Yes. Is it harder to do? Yes. Does it take a lot more talent and support? Yes. Is it more valuable? Yes. Now, what we're also seeing is the same thing that's happening, let's say on LinkedIn, right? So on LinkedIn, for instance, they're allowing these technology platforms to automate using AI messaging. You can go out and send all these AI messages all day long. I will go out and send one video note or one voice note on LinkedIn, and I'll get a response like that. And so the human approach to prospecting is by far superior than the AI approach to prospecting right now. But I will also say that the rep who doesn't absorb or take advantage of what AI can do will replace the reps who ignore AI and just pretend it doesn't exist. So
Awesome.
it is a hybrid approach. I mean, a lot of people use AI because it's a cool thing to say, but all AI really is advanced software. It's all it is. It's software, it's technology. So software has always been advancing and it always has been doing things better. But here's a history lesson. 10, 12 years ago, Marketo and Pardot came out, which is a marketing automation platform. And people started firing their sales teams thinking that everyone's just gonna send out emails and no one needs to sell anymore. And they did that. And I was a part of that, dismantling of sales reps. And I said, guys, this is not the answer to it. Now, fast forward a couple years later, they hired all those salespeople back. But today, there is no sales rep that doesn't use marketing automation in their outbound efforts. So again, it has to be integrated into it. And it's not going to fully replace really good salespeople. But I think it will replace the really bad salespeople, the ones who've just been coasting or trying to do their minimums to be their maximums.
I love that. I love this concept. I emailed my list about it where I said average is over, and
Yes.
with AI, and it's just gonna wipe out those that are sort of just getting by, just doing what they can to keep their sales director or their manager happy. And I think again, you're validating a lot of what our other good guests have said is like you're using AI as a support tool, and I love how you defined it really as advanced software. It's not a threat. It's actually a tool, and it's there to support you. But it's not a crutch because when we talk about you get the pings or the notes on their panels, that's guiding the conversation. But there's not an over reliance on that technology. And I think you've talked about the humane connection of sales and emails are not a human connection, but a voice, as you say, with a voice note or a voice memo, or Bonjoro or whatever software you're using.
Yeah.
Fascinating. And great answer, Gabe, for a very long-winded question there around over-reliance. So, my friend, what would you say to people that say, oh, cold calling's dead? Don't cold call.
Yeah, that would be the exact opposite approach to how I would believe. And it's not because we sell. Listen, if I can email only and get as many meetings as we get today with both cold calling and email, then I would do it. It would cost me a lot less money. My number one expense is payroll. And I love everyone here and I don't want to fire anyone, but at the end of the day, we're also running a business, and if we can do the same thing with less people, we would love to do that. The rub, however, is that it's not as effective and to not do it that way. Also, cold calling on an AI bot or anything like that, you can't do that. It's literally illegal in many parts of the world where you're actually using AI voice to make cold calls. And so there has to be an opt-in, there has to be at least a knowledge of understanding that it's an AI tool. And so that right now is not where it needs to be, and it's really, really hard to get around regulations if that's something you're trying to do. I wouldn't advise it. But yeah, our cold calling approach is, like I said, it's hard. It is a lot of work. It's very expensive. But for the right return on investment, for the right annual contract value, and for the right product segment, it absolutely is a dynamite approach.
Yeah, absolutely. It might cost you more, but you're going to get a better result. I mean, again, this over-reliance on marketing automation and, I just don't need a human. And like all businesses, we want to be as efficient and as effective as we can. Not that we don't love our people, but we want to be using the tools as much as we can. But I think we cannot replace, I think as we get more and more automated, the value of being a human and having human connection and emotional skill, I mean, I think that's going to, well, it's already was important. Now I think it's really come to the fore. Would you agree with that, Gabe? Like the ability to read a room, spot the things that aren't being said, spot subtleties, nuances, signals, non-verbals, those sort of things, or tonality. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. I mean, I literally got an email from a CEO of a company that sent me a note, and I said, "Do you just want to say something? Your sales rep that just did a demo with us was so great, so thoughtful, so prepared, so insightful, and just so cool. And we actually looked at 3 different companies, and we're moving forward with you, even though you're more expensive than the other 2, because we just were completely impressed with what she had to tell us." Now, if that isn't a testimony to what you just said, I don't know what is. They're literally paying us more money because of how intuitive and impressed they were of our rep who sold them the program. So I think it's so important to that point that it is something that you have to realize that it is really where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah, you just reminded me of a brilliant book. I'm sort of looking straight over here to try and find it. Oh, here it is. This book, I'm sure you've read it. It's a wonderful book. Scott Edinger, The Growth Leader. I don't know if you've read it, but I'm a big reader, and that's no flex. I just love learning. And, the one thing he talked about in this book, which is what you've just reminded of us with your example with the rep, and then you being generous and gracious enough to give them that feedback, which is a really good human thing to do, because we always hear the bullshit and the crap and the negative. We don't hear the positive.
Right.
That, the overall sales experience is 25% of the purchasing decision. So with that rep, the demo, that's validating exactly what we're saying here. And this is obviously from the McKinsey survey of 1,200 B2B purchases, and it's seminal, isn't it? It's like, it's how you make them feel. Like their product was a lot more expensive, but how thoughtful, how gracious, how generous, how kind. She obviously did a grand job. She did a great job.
Yeah, and again, that's where AI is great, right? AI is really great when it comes to research. If you could come to a call thoughtful, authentic, prepared, knowing what that company is doing inside and out, and speaking to it intelligently, but using AI to gather all that knowledge so that it saves you a ton of time in that research. If that sales rep that does demos for us, if she can save time in researching the company and the people who are going to be on that call using AI, instead of her doing 4 demos a day, maybe she could do 6 demos a day. And those 2 demos may not look like a lot more, but if you amortize that out, that's a game changer, and that's not doubling the size of our team. So, but again, we're not taking it away from her authentic human approach. She's just more prepared for those calls and saving time by using AI to research them. So that's how we believe that AI is absolutely a game changer for us, but we're not going to do an AI avatar answering questions to a demo for an enterprise sales deal, if that makes sense.
God forbid, for a while, it certainly wouldn't work with our farmers and our growers around the planet. But on that whole concept of using AI as a tool, not as a crutch, and then also adding that human touch, so it can do a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of the specification of the research and the reach out. I think that's cool. I want to move on, Gabe, if we can. And by the way, I just love how succinct you are. That I want to give you that compliment. A lot of guests aren't as succinct as you are. You give your answers and they're lovely and succinct. Go you. The next one is coaching. Now, we talked about recruiting, we talked about onboarding, and the third thing, I know we're jumping around a bit here, but the ability, and I know it's an overlap probably with the onboarding, but the biggest mistake I see with the managers I work with and I train is they just get too busy to coach their teams. And I'm about to inflict and bang my head against a wall here, but they say, I'm just too busy, I've got too much on my plate. And we know they are. We know they're pulled in a million different directions, all sales managers are. What do you say to a manager that says, yeah, look, I know I need to coach my team and I need to make them take the time to coach their team? What would you say as a very, very high producer and a CEO of a very large sales agent development company on the globe? What advice would you have to them? What would you say to them when they say that?
Yeah, I mean, if your managers are saying they don't have time to coach the team, I think that we should probably replace the manager pretty soon, right? I say this a lot of the times when it comes to managers and leadership. You know, every leader, every manager should have come from being a top producer before themselves. However, the opposite also is included, meaning not every top producer and individual contributor should be a leader or a manager, right? I remember years ago, the best thing I ever did was fire our top producer on our sales floor. And the reason why is they thought they owned the place. They showed up late. They didn't offer help. They got asked questions by new junior reps, and they didn't give them a time of day. And they were just a jerk. And so at the end of the day, like, those things have to be removed. But yeah, your managers and your leaders have to provide that coaching, have to provide the training. And here's how we find our next leaders and managers is the ones who are on the sales floor who are doing those things without having to be asked to do it from us, or it's in their job title. If someone is coaching and training, is having that passion of helping and serving others and just doing it out of the kindness of their heart, then those are the people I want to double down on and invest in and teach them how to be good managers, because they already have the passion for helping others. And that's where we want to find those people.
Yeah. So you're looking that when we talked about the traits of great salespeople, then the traits of great sales managers or leaders, or you call them sales directors, we'll call them leaders because they should be.
Yeah.
And first of all, they need to know how to lead themselves before leading others. What are those traits? So obviously generosity is one of them, but what else do you look for when you're interviewing them, because you're recruiting, or maybe one of your really good sales agents becomes a sales director and a sales leader, but what are the things that you're looking for in a really exceptional sales leader? What are the traits? What are the attributes?
Yeah, we have to really it's really a coach. Like, I love leaders, I love managers, I love directors, but at the end of the day, they're a mentor and they're a coach.
Amen.
So can they coach people differently? This is the hard part, right? We have a 1 to 10 ratio, meaning for every manager or leader, we actually have 10 reps on their team. That we're fanatical about that ratio. We tried more, we've tried less. It's never good. That's our ratio, just for us.
1 in 10 is the sweet spot.
We find 1 in 10 for us is the sweet spot. So we have a full-time leader coaching and mentoring a team of 10. Now, they have to know how to teach and coach every single one of those 10 people differently. They have to know what makes them tick. They have to know what's personal to them. They have to know what they want to buy their parents for Christmas. They have to know what their house payment is. They have to know everything that's important to them financially, because the better you coach them, they are now able to get those goals financially accomplished. And so they have to talk to people who are extroverts. They have to talk to people who are introverts. They have to talk to people who are super A-type personality. They have to talk to people who are highly analytical. Some people get offended if you coach them in one way versus coaching someone else and you're not giving them enough tough love. So I think the big thing is to be moldable, and the ability to teach people individually is super important.
Yeah. So that you made a really important point there around coaching, the ability or the adaptability to be able to coach differently. How do you teach them to do that? Is that nature, or is that nurture, or is that something that's organic and within them or inside them, like their curiosity, their empathy, they're a people person? What is it?
Yeah, I would say, I wrote a blog on this recently, that people think extroverts make great salespeople. Well, introverts make really good salespeople too, right? Salespeople, the real good ones, are question askers, right? They're just asking really good, intentful, thoughtful questions, and then they're shutting up, right? So if you are good at asking really good, thoughtful questions, then you can be a great salesperson more likely than not. And it's not when most people think, oh, there's a slick person who just doesn't stop talking, they're born for sales. It's actually not always true. So I think when it comes to managing the managers or training the managers, the way I coach is I literally do frequently asked questions, right? Or ask me anything. And I get on a call and I say, okay, what issues are you having with your team? And they come to me with that and I say, here's what I advise you to do. Here's what I would do in this scenario. And then I teach them how to go do that, and then they go do it and they come back and report. So I'm coaching coaches, right? I'm teaching people how to teach, and that's my role in the company. But at the end of the day, I think that's just the life experiences and the examples of just the day-to-day is really where that real training comes in, because you never know what someone's gonna need or want or say, and we have to take it on a case-by-case scenario, and that's where they learn. So it does take time, and that's, of course, the reason why it takes so much time is because there's those nuances.
I think the other point is what I've learned, and again, it's not about me. I want it to be about the guests. Is I've noticed that the managers or the leaders or the coaches that show they care really get a lot from their team. We're a big rugby nation down here in New Zealand with the All Blacks, and we've got some pretty successful rugby teams. And one of the best things I learned from one of the rugby leadership programs that I went on, which was really, really worthwhile, was you coach the person first, then the player.
Right.
And being interested, and I think the point you're making around is like, what are their goals? What's their situation? Mum and dad needing help? Do they have a child with learning difficulties? Are they got their first baby? Have they got a home? And getting aligned to those goals, whether they're A-type or they're an ambivert, which is obviously, as you and I know, is in between if everyone thinks I'm just making these words up, that's in between an extrovert and an introvert. And I think, Gabe, you've reminded this that the importance of asking questions and being, the quality of your conversation is determined by the quality of your question. If they're really thoughtful questions, I mean, we coach people to say, oh, when they say this, you say that. And there's a lot of truth to that, isn't there? But I think actually we are appalling. This is a generalization, but I think we're pretty bad at teaching people how to ask really good questions. The schooling and education system is taught, little Johnny's taught to have the right answer. He's not taught to have the right question. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh my God. So I'm so happy you said this. So I am the last person in the interview process, meaning that when someone wants to work here, they have to go through me before they do that. And they literally, I did not coin this phrase, but it's called Gabe's Gauntlet. And if they
Gabe's
go
Gauntlet.
through,
I love it.
yeah, my marketing team started my newsletter. It's called Gabe's Gauntlet.
Is it trademarked now or not?
No, not yet, but I'm working on it.
It might come
But
up.
the reality,
there might be a T-shirt or some merchandise.
yeah, I think
I feel a
that's
T-shirt's coming on or some merch.
I survived Gabe's Gauntlet. That would be
yeah.
But but the point of that is when I'm in the last part of the interview process and everyone prepares the candidates to know this, is that I don't ask many questions on the interview. I ask them this: what questions do you have for me? And I will sit there and just I will literally interview them based on what they're asking of me. And so if they don't have good questions, if they don't have thoughtful questions, if they don't have big, audacious, bold questions for the CEO of the company, then that is a deal breaker for me. And so, yeah, that's how I interview. I don't ask people questions anymore in the interview process. I expect my team to do all those things. I ask them what do they have questions in regards for me, and that's how I make my decision.
Gabe's Gauntlet here. I love that. That's so cute. I love it. Not cute. I mean, it's just really cool. The power of that one question. Can you just repeat it for everyone? Because I use it in my own interviews, but I haven't explained it as eloquently as you. What's the question you ask, and then you shut up, and then you judge them by the questions they ask you?
Yeah, I said, thanks so much for spending some time with me. I'm really looking forward to learning about you and telling you about our company, but what questions do you have for me? And that's essentially that. And that's it. And then I see what they say. And we'll go from there.
Yeah, or not, as the case might be. I'm the same. Right. Like when I do a bit of vetting with some of the rural companies I work with their machinery or seed or fertilizer or crop science, agrochemical, and I always say to them, "So, what questions have you got for me?" And they go, "I haven't really got any questions," and I'm like, "Well, that's a big no-no for me. That's a red signal. It's a red flag going." So, I'm not like you and super successful, but we're a work in progress. I'm like, so you haven't really thought, you haven't really taken the opportunity, and therefore I'm judging you by your ability to think and your curiosity and taking advantage. And if you're acting or reacting in a way which should be a question that you are very well planned for, that you should be expecting, you haven't got questions for me, then how can I trust you to have a really good conversation with a customer? Because you haven't got questions for me, then I don't think you've got the ability to ask questions and have a quality conversation with a customer, right?
Absolutely. I mean, like you said, it's a red flag if they don't have any questions. Now, will I ask questions? Yeah, but I'll ask questions based on their question.
Yeah, you'll
like
follow
they'll ask me they'll ask me a question, and I'll be able to say, where did you come up with that question?
Yeah, or what's behind that, or tell me more. How come? Yeah. Like, I'm when you said around, exactly, and that's where you're leaning in, and I know it's such a well-trodden term or buzzword term, but curiosity, it's a sales superpower, man. Like, and a lot of people don't cultivate it enough, do they?
No, if you look at like Masterclass, that company out there that does all these
Beautiful.
amazing
Great.
videos with incredible cooks and businesses and
Yeah.
DJs, and
Brilliant.
what I watched every single one of them for businesses
Mm,
and salespeople and marketing people, and I looked at them, and the one thing they have throughout the entire process is this glaring curiosity.
yeah.
And again, the curiosityness, if you will, if that's a word, of a salesperson is so important. And again, that's what I'm interviewing for. So if they're asking me great questions, will say, wow, I can put this person on a cold call that's calling CEOs of companies and get them. They're going to get meetings out of these CEOs because they're asking great questions. So again, it's our way of understanding their ability in being a good salesperson based on their ability to ask questions. So I couldn't agree with you more.
Now you've really set up. I haven't got an equivalent of Gabe's gauntlet here, so I haven't got an acronym or a Sinjin session, let's say. So I'm going to
Yeah.
see if these are good questions to ask you, Gabe.
Okay.
First question I've got for you is, my friend, what have you become much clearer on as you've aged? And you're not old, but as you've aged and you've matured and you've gained more experience and more wisdom, what have you become clearer on that perhaps you weren't when you were younger?
It's a great question. And yes, I would say that's a good question. So you checked that right box for asking a great question.
A little pat on the back, yeah.
Yeah, so I've taken a lot of time to understand personality assessments like Myers-Briggs or, Personality Plus or DISC assessments. And there's a lot of, personality coaching and training and assessments that people take. So I've spent a lot of time there because, again, it's understanding people. And the 21-year-old Gabe, is significantly different than soon to be 45-year-old Gabe. And the reason why is because my personality has more evolved from the things I used to care about when I was younger. So all I cared about was, making money and really getting promoted. And it makes sense. I grew up from very humble beginnings. No one in my family was well off. My dad died when I was very young. My mom was a school teacher. So I grew up in this financially lower class level, and I just wanted to not be in that situation. And I would literally rip people's arms off to get deals sold. I was like, it's very like that boiler room mentality is how I was, not because of anything else, is that's all I cared about.
Yeah.
Today, I don't care about that stuff.
Yeah.
I care about what my family needs. I care about serving others. I care about making sure my clients are happy. I care about watching my team get promoted, and that's what motivates me now. And I think that's how I operate on a day-to-day basis.
Do you think your earlier Gabe at 21, do you reckon that was your sort of survival script based on where you came from, the family? Do you think that's what it was? And then you've obviously adapted and understand that there are other priorities that aren't as important as making money. I mean, also the cynic, not me, because I'm not cynical, I'm an optimist, but the cynic might say, well, this is easy. This guy's a CEO. He's obviously very well paid. Here he is sitting in New York with his 52-inch plasma screens, and it's easy for him to say that he doesn't need to worry about deals and done. But you've had to do the work. It hasn't just happened overnight for you, hasn't it? You haven't just been given this stuff.
Nothing was given to me, and I say that humbly. Now, I have worked for everything that I've gotten in my life, and I have been able to deal with a lot of physical tragedies in my life, and I think that is what shaped me to do it. I think there was a philosopher that said there was two men behind prison bars. One saw mud, the other saw stars. And it's an interesting scenario. It's like there was another assessment. There was these two twins. And the twins were, looked at and reviewed, and one was a very down out, in jail, left and right, always getting in and out of trouble. Yeah. And then the other twin was a doctor, successful, man of the year, mayor of his town. And they asked him, what made you the way you are? And the one that was down and out, in and out of jail, and again, these are biological twins, so these are the closest assessments you can possibly get to. And the one said, well, the reason I am to where I am is because my dad was an abusive alcoholic. And then the other person was interviewed with the mayor, the doctor, the family man, the incredible success story. And they said, why are you the way you are? And he said, well, because my dad was an abusive alcoholic. So the answer was the exact same, but it was either the reason to go out and survive and be motivated, or the reason to make excuses and fold your tent. And I think that's, how you perceive it is so important. There's always two sides to every coin, and that's how we approached it.
I love that. What a great reminder. I've read that twins research study,
Yeah.
and that reminds us about mindset. And I read every morning as I wake up before the kids get up. And it was not we do not see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. And so that perspective that we take, and I love that twin. That's absolutely gold, Gabe. Why do you love sales so much?
Yeah, I mean, I like solving problems. I like fixing. I'm a fixer, right? So like when there's a problem, and the first thing I think about is, okay, what do we do to fix it? Like that's where I go. It's like blinders are on, and I'm trying to fix things. It's actually funny. I tell my team that you have to tell me the A's, and what are the A's? Before they come to me with anything, they need to tell me why they're coming to me, because if they don't, I'm going to go immediately into action mode. So with some things, they come to me to keep me aware of something. Hey, Gabe, I'm just making you aware of it, right? That's number one A is keeping you aware. Other is approval. Hey, I need to get your decision on this. Can I buy this? Can I invest in this? Can we set this up? Approval, right? The other one is action, right? And then the other one is advice. I want your advice on it. What would you do if you were me? So those are the 4 A's that I require everyone on my team to come to me with. But if they don't tell me what it is, I'm in action mode right away. So I really love sales, because sales is figuring out problems and coming up with solutions to those problems. And that's, if you don't approach it that way and you're just looking there to get a commission, or you don't believe in the product, or you don't believe in the mission, you're not gonna be there very, very long, and people are gonna see through that real quickly.
Love it. That's the 4 A's. That's a golden takeaway as well. Let's talk about one of those A's.
Okay.
What's some of the best advice you've been given when it comes to sales?
I think I mentioned it earlier, but my mom taught me a long time ago, Gabe, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. I grew up as an Italian New Yorker, so if you can believe the stereotype, I was absolutely that person. I always liked being in the mix. I always, was in the kitchen when my grandmother was, making food, and my grandfather was playing cards with my uncles. And so I was always learning how to talk, and I was always had that gift of Gabe, the gift of gab. That was the joke.
Oh, I love it.
So I was able to talk. My mom said, Gabe, you should be a lawyer. And then I realized how much lawyers actually, all they do is research and write papers and documents. And I'm like, oh, that's boring. But at the end of the day, I had to really learn myself on how to shut up. And so when I'm talking to a new salesperson or a new or new manager, say, listen, you gotta stop talking, you gotta listen. And if you just listen more, you'll know what to do next. And you'll know what you say matters a lot more when you're listening before you say it. So that's a big piece of advice. And the other one, real simply, is make up in numbers what you lack in skill. If you're brand new on your sales floor and the rep next to you is making $100, make 200, right? Just outwork everybody, and not saying you're gonna do it forever, because you'll eventually burn out, but you'll learn so much so quickly that you'll be strategic the next 6 months, right? And you can take your time with it, and it's more specific to what you're doing. So outwork, outpace when you're brand new, and of course, stop talking and start listening.
That is great advice. Last couple of questions, my friend. It might be an overlap with what you said. What is the number one ingredient? We're not talking about grandma or mama's kitchen, but what's the number one ingredient or attribute you think has helped you be the success that you are now? Noting that all of us are work in progress, but what is the number one thing you attribute to your success and how you've got to where you are now as a CEO of this business?
I would say grit. And it's the number one thing we look for when interviewing people, and it's not on a resume. And that's why doing interviews and asking questions and going through a 4-step interview process to hire an SDR is probably 3 times as much as most people do. But it's because we're looking for that grit, and we're looking for that tenacity, and we're looking for that perseverance and that consistency and that resilience, as I mentioned. So it's so important to have that tough skin, because keep in mind, it's like baseball. If you bat 300 in baseball, you make millions of dollars a year, but it means you're out 7 times out of 10. So you're striking out 7 times out of 10. Well, in sales, if you talk to 100 people and get 1, 2, 3 meetings, that means you literally had 97 people say no to you. How well can you keep going if you are dealing with those amounts of rejections? So that's so important to have that grit.
Yeah, I love how you've listed the attributes of perseverance, persistence, grit, and then I imagine when you do your due diligence on your people, you talk about their backstories, things.
Yeah.
You've said you've been, rather unfortunate in life around, some
Right.
lots of physical accidents in family and loved members and stuff like that. Gabe, you've been a gift. Okay, so that's the new T-shirt. I have to say, you are so eloquent and you're so articulate in your answers, and I can see you've done a lot of work on that because naturally, I'm stereotyping you here. The Italian New Yorker is never stops talking, and you've learned to shut up, but you answer your questions so crisply. Well done, sir. Like, brilliant answers, great advice for the team. Gabe, we can't leave you out saying, where do people get hold of you? Can they connect with you on LinkedIn? Where do they go? How do they connect with you? They go, I like this guy and I want to find out more about what they do and what the business does and how they can help my business.
Yeah, LinkedIn. And first off, St. John, thank you so much for the time. Thank you so much for that amazing compliment. Coming from you, it means a ton because you are a pro as well, and we appreciate being on the show and all the things that you do. And in LinkedIn, to your point, is exactly what we do. I post literally twice a day, every day on LinkedIn. We have a ton of free material. I mean, you can do what we do if you just watched all the videos, and that would be awesome if you did. But at the end of the day, if you want any help or any questions, just shoot me a DM, and I'll definitely respond.
Brilliant. Gabe, again, you've been a gift. You've been generous. You're a good guy. You're one of the good human beings. Thank you I know you're such a busy dude. Thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for the compliments about us. We're a tiny little show. We're a very niche show, very specialist show, but I think there's been utter gold in some of your answers. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, St. John. Have a great day, bud. Appreciate it.